Hey there everybody, Halloween is just around the corner. That means it's time to get spooky with Bone Crusher. Now this stuff is an absolute staple in pretty much almost every European pomade collector's arsenal. And it's widely discussed not only in the European pomade circle, but also made its name worldwide as probably being a really good German homebrew, probably the most famous German one out there, and one of the better European homebrew pomades, even though the brew scene here in Europe isn't as big as it is in the United States. And I've heard a lot of positive reviews surrounding this stuff. It's labeled as a heavy, and as you all know, I very much prefer to use and review the lighter and medium stuff because they work best in my hair, and not a lot of heavies actually are very compatible with my particular hair type. But because I heard really positive reviews surrounding this stuff, and I heard that it's not really much like other heavy pomades, I decided to go grab a tin and see for myself what it's all about. And here it is. As you can tell, it's got a mega cool skull design in the label, which makes it a perfect pomade to review for this Halloween. And the label on it, pretty much typical of a lot of the European pomades I've used before. It's not really much of a glossy sticker label, but it's kind of like a matte surface. And at the back over here, you have the ingredients. And it says that there's 120 milliliters worth of product in there, which in imperial units is about 4 ounces. The scent on it. A lot of people actually say that it's a lemon scent, but really it's lemongrass, not a lemon scent. It's actually a very heavily scented pomade, and it is really a strong scent. It's a strong lemongrass scent. And to be honest, every other European brew I've used, I've only used 3 so far, including this one. They all have exactly the same scent. And this is actually one of the first ones around, so it probably set the trend, it set the standard for the scent of a lot of other European homebrews. And, you know, a lot of people consider Bone Crusher to be so great, and so they kind of try to emulate a similar scent into their pomades so that people would kind of like use their brews and just say it reminds them of Bone Crusher. But I guess this pretty much set the benchmark out there for the scent of European homebrewed pomades. It's that typical lemongrass scent that I find in pretty much every other European brew I've used. Now scooping it out, it's sort of I have a little bit of an issue with this pomade because you can tell the top layer, it's very waxy. You can tell by the appearance, it's got the typical pale yellow pomade color, that beeswax color into it. And so if you scoop up the top, you can see that I do need quite some pressure to it. However, as you dig through the bottom, if you get through the waxy layer on top, it becomes a little more creamy at the bottom. It's easier to scoop as you get to the bottom of the tin, or just basically if you get past the waxy surface on top, then it gets a little less easier to scoop. Now we'll not scoop from the waxy part over here, I'll just try to scoop. It's a little easier, as you can see, it's more creamy. But it's very, very waxy in the top, so you better rub it between your palms very evenly, because if you use too much of it, you should also not use too much of a scoop all at once, because if you use so much and you don't really break it down properly, you might have a little bit of a beating issue with the pomade, so there might be a little bit of some waxy streaks into your hair. But then if you apply it into moderate amounts, just bit by bit, just as I did over here, you won't really have much of an issue actually. By the way, here's a really important side note that I feel is necessary to add, and that I've realized I forgot to mention the moment I was checking the video and I was done shooting it. You really do not want to apply this pomade to overly damp hair, because if the hair is too wet, you'd find that the pomade actually clumps up and it won't be pretty. It'll be a little difficult to spread all around your hair. So you would want your hair to be almost dry, or even dry for that matter, just severely towel dry at most. But if you're worried about tug and pull, don't worry, because this pomade gives almost minimal tug and pull for heavy, and that's what makes it really great for a heavy pomade. So if you want to apply the dry hair, you really shouldn't worry about losing any hairs because there is minimal tug and pull from this stuff. But you would notice somewhat of a bit of a waxy tension, but nothing close to severe tug and pull. And applying this stuff, I'll just show the scooping it out from the waxy layer one more time, so you can tell. Not too easy. And applying it actually, for something so waxy, it actually does not have much of a tug, which is kind of impressive actually. You would feel somewhat of that tension to it, somewhat of like a waxy resistance, but it's nothing too hardcore as long as you don't use too much at once. Again, with these kind of pomades, you just don't want to overdo it. You can use many finger scoops all at once. Not all at once, just you can use as many finger scoops as many finger scoops as you want, excuse me, but just make sure that each finger scoop is a small one. That's how it's supposed to go. Anyway, when you put pomade in your hair, it's a lot easier to add than to subtract. So you really don't want to go overboard at all. Need to really just make sure that everything is evenly distributed over here. And I think I'm done with that. Just gonna go ahead and take my comb and slick it all back. Now, so you can tell there's kind of like a resistance to it. I actually put the most on top over here, so I'll show you what that is like. It has a bit of that waxy resistance, but it's nothing too hardcore. But as you comb it even more, it gets a little smoother. But styling with this though, you do get a lot of volume if that's your thing, and it actually, the height is retained throughout the whole day. And the thing is, it doesn't feel too heavy on your hair. For something so waxy, it honestly, you definitely feel some weight to it because it's a product so waxy, but compared to its other counterparts, it is absolutely not too much of a bad feeling at all in your hair. You won't feel anything too heavyweight. And I don't really have too much experience with heavy pomades, but I've heard that this one from other reviews isn't too much of a heavy hold, but it's, even my barber, he told me that this stuff is more of a medium, but honestly, this is kind of like an overkill for a medium. It's a little too much for a firm, but it's on the lighter side of heavy, I'd say. Probably just, it's barely just a heavy. So here it is, I'm trying to get a little bit more forwardness to the front of my contour. I do like a little bit of forwardness, even though I don't really style a pomp with it. And the slickness on this, well, for a heavy, it's pretty decent actually. It's not as slick as a firm hold, but it does offer a nice stickiness. It has a decent tackiness to it so that you can keep your style in a proper place when just as how you need it. And the control in this stuff for my hair, because I don't really work too well with the waxy stuff, it works better compared to a lot of other heavies, but sometimes I'd find a little bit of spiking up, like you can see the front over here, but if I just comb it through a little bit more, I guess it'll be okay. I normally don't try to use too much of this stuff, but right now I'll just probably add just a tiny bit more. And scent on it, by the way, like I said, it's a strong scent, and the intensity of this, the scent in this pomade is a strong one. I mean, it does not fade out whatsoever. A lot of pomades I've used, their scent actually kind of just fades out towards the end of the day, but even after a full day, you can very much still smell the pomade in the air around you. And it does not get weaker anyhow, it does not get any stronger. It just maintains the same relatively strong scent for a pomade for the whole day. And now I need to just work a little more with this pomade because for a heavy it does not work too bad, but sometimes especially in the mornings when I get up after a bedhead, it doesn't work as well as most other pomades. But for a heavy, it's pretty decent on my particular hair type. There may be a little spiking, but towards a few hours later after I do recomb, it gets a little better and a little slicker for some reason, which is why whenever I use this in the morning, I prefer to use it with a tonic and then blow dry it and then put the stuff in. It will also make it go in a lot easier. Now I should just fix the back a little. I guess we can call it done. Now this is how the pomade looks in my hair, and let's talk about the shine on it. The shine is actually a low one. It's a pretty low shine. I would say it's not completely matte. It's definitely not matte, but it's a notch above a neutral shine. There's definitely a little bit of shine there. You can see it. It's sort of like that. Because of its high wax content, you would obviously expect sort of a more waxy and whited out kind of sheen. And the endurance on this, it's actually it held up pretty well. Of course, because it's on the it's one of the heavier pomades, so my hair actually did hold up all day long. And let's talk about the buildup. Now, this is just something really I find really interesting about the pomade, because for something that is that uses quite a lot of beeswax into it, there's something pretty waxy. The buildup on it actually does not feel gross at all. It does not feel very heavy in your hair and just very I don't like it. One of the reasons why I really like using heavy pomade is because I don't really like it when they give me that super heavy feel, especially when I build up and I just can't stand it after 2 days and I wash it all out. But this one, honestly, even after just one shower, it feels a lot cleaner in your hair, and the buildup on it's actually nicer in the second application and so forth compared to the first one. And I actually don't really experience much spiking anymore in my hair, and my hair just gets better control as I build up even more, and it does not feel overly like a waxy overkill into my hair. And it's actually very clean for what it's supposed to be. So this is pretty superior in that sense. Now here's another really interesting thing about the Bone Crusher pomade. If you give it some time after your style, you would notice somewhat of a cooling sensation into your scalp, like you just rub some mint into it. And that is just really interesting, and makes it stand out from other pomades and homebrews, not just in Europe, but worldwide as well. It's not every day when you have somewhat of a cooling sensation that some tonics would give you from a pomade. It's nothing too crazy, but it's just like a slight cooling feel, but it does feel really awesome in your scalp and actually feels quite nourishing actually. And the reason behind this is that this pomade actually contains menthol as one of its ingredients. I honestly didn't really pay attention to the ingredients list when I first bought this, but after I used it for the first time and noticed this, I read the ingredients list at the back to be sure, and sure as hell it does contain menthol. Final verdict on Bone Crusher hair pomade. This stuff really is superior for a heavy holding pomade, and I've never really seen any other pomade, or even any other heavy holding pomade for the matter, that comes close to it in terms of performance. I mean, this one has great workability and great malleability surrounding its styling factor. And most heavies don't actually work well for my hair. And despite the fact that I might receive a little minor spiking up with this stuff when my hair is not at its best in the morning, eventually, I don't really have to wait too long, but quite a while after that, even probably maybe give it 5 to 15 minutes, it can eventually look really slick, especially after I recomb it and there's no more spiking, just like most other heavy pomades that give me spiking up and really not a good hairstyle throughout the whole day. But this one just really steps in and does its thing so that my hair actually always looks pretty damn good whenever I use this heavy pomade. And you can tell that I get a really nice style out of it. The front doesn't look too blocky at all. And that's what I really like about it, and that's the reason why I consider it to be superior compared to its other counterparts, because with most heavier holding pomades, you would have a very unnatural looking shape to it. If you do a pompadour, you have one of those tower of power wall palm, so it'll look very flat at the front, and I hate that. I prefer a more rounded style, and you can tell earlier when I was filming my contour, I was trying to get a round shape at the front, and it just really was able to achieve that. Not the roundest thing in the world, but it still is enough in my standards to give a pretty natural looking and rounded, it's rounded enough at the front. So this stuff is actually great to style with. I wouldn't say it's like a perfect, like a dream to style with, but it's really good for what it's supposed to be. So it's also got like a great hold, great endurance, and if you're into the scent, you would be happy to find it that'll last you the whole day. And this is overall my favorite heavy right now. Well, I love Lockhart's Goon Grease, which advertises itself to be a heavy, but I'd consider that a firm more than heavy, so I won't count it as heavy. But this is actually a new favorite. It's my favorite heavy holding pomade right now. So if you are a heavy pomade user, I'm pretty sure you would love the stuff. But if you're a non-heavy user like me, you might as well go check this stuff out, because it's really not like most other heavy pomades, and if you're willing to dive into the world of heavy holding pomades, this stuff would make a perfect introduction, because it is absolutely very, I love it a lot. There's nothing else to say about it. It's just a really great heavier pomade. So just go ahead and check it out. If you got some insight from this video, and if you enjoyed it, please leave a like, a comment, or a question below. Subscribe to my channel and click on the bell icon to never miss a single upload of mine. And I'll see you in my next video. Stay greasy.